It is my pleasure to introduce our presenter today, Alex Davis, Talent Acquisition Specialist with Enterprise Holdings, to share competencies for our career-ready workforce. All right, Alex, please take it away.
Alrighty, thank you so much. Yes, I'm Alex. I'm a talent acquisition specialist for Enterprise here in Western Pennsylvania. So I work to find, recruit, and hire all of our employees here in Western PA. So I wanted to talk about competencies for a career-ready workforce today. As you know, you guys are starting to prep for career searching and starting to applying to jobs, even if you're not at that stage yet. This is a really great topic because these are skills that you're going to be building throughout your college career that are going to help you as you enter the workforce. First, just to kind of start out here, what is career readiness? So NACE, which is the National Association of Colleges and Employers, they started a career readiness initiative to help college students with preparing to go into the workforce and start a career successfully. So they define career readiness basically as a foundation that allows you to demonstrate various core competencies that broadly prepare you for success in the workplace and then also lifelong career management. So for new college graduates, career readiness is really key to ensuring your successful entrance into the workforce. There are 8 career readiness competencies that NACE gathered, and there are a variety of ways that each of these can be demonstrated, and all 8 of those are what's on the screen right now. But something that I want to mention is that regardless of the industry that you're going into, the position that you hold, the company you work for, these competencies apply across the board. These are competencies that are going to help you be successful in your career, no matter where you are. And they're also going to help you build a successful career and continue that growth in your career. So the first thing I want to talk about here is career and self-development. So career and self-development revolves around proactively developing yourself and your career through continual personal and professional learning. So this includes being aware of your strengths and weaknesses, networking to build relationships, implementing feedback that you get, exploring different career paths, and then also taking part in continuous learning. One thing I do just want to point out before I continue, you'll see on these slides here that for each competency, there's a list of sample behaviors. These are behaviors that NACE listed as kind of examples. So these are not by any means extensive lists, but they're just referenced just so you can get an idea of what this competency entails. So if you guys do have any questions as I'm going through, please feel free to type them in the chat or raise your hand and I'll answer them as we go. But how do you improve your development as you're going through your career or as you're preparing to go into your career? So a really great way to focus on your development, first of all, is a self-assessment. I have a link that I'll drop in the chat at the end here for a really cool self-reflection. So this will have you identify 3 areas of strength within yourself and 2 areas that you think maybe you need improvement. So in areas of strength, these are things that come naturally to you, that you excel in frequently, and areas that need improvement, maybe things that don't come quite so easily to you, maybe things that you've gotten constructive feedback on before. But for each strength, this activity has you list a few bullet points of how you've demonstrated this skill or this strength before. And then for each area of improvement, it'll have you list one thing for each area that you can do within the next 2 weeks to help improve these skills. So this is a really great tool just to kind of get a sense of where you stand. It's kind of similar to a SWOT analysis, if anybody has done that before. While it's not always really fun to think about the areas we need to improve in, it is still important because, again, it tells us where we stand, but it also allows you to take those steps and figure out what do I need to do to improve so that you can make those improvements. I always recommend setting goals as well, short-term and long-term goals. Personally, I set these goals for myself personally and professionally. Having a long-term goal is great because it kind of can give you some direction, and setting short-term, almost milestone goals will help you get there. So Sometimes when you have like a really big, lofty goal, it seems intimidating or it seems like you're never going to get there. But having these short-term goals that you can check off as you go kind of helps keep you focused and keep you on track. When you're entering into a career, I also always recommend finding a mentor. So this might be somebody who's outside of your direct circle at work. So maybe not somebody you work directly with, but somebody that you can turn to with questions, that you can ask advice, ask for feedback. And a lot of times you find a mentor through networking. So whether that be at a workshop or some type of event, or whether it be like at a happy hour or a lunch at work. Typically you find these through networking, but if you enter into the workplace and you are having trouble finding a mentor, you can always ask. You can always ask your manager or supervisor to help find someone that could act as a mentor to you. And then lastly here, for improving development, I always recommend taking part in additional training and education. So explore those options in the workplace and figure out, are there workshops or are there courses that I can take that are going to give me a leg up? Because not only will it help you be better in your job, but it will also help you when you go for that next promotion, because you'll have something that not everybody has on their resume. So next competency I want to touch on here is professionalism. So NACE defined professionalism as understanding and demonstrating effective work habits and acting in the interest of the larger community and workplace. So basically that entails being positive, prepared, and reliable. Something I do want to touch on here is virtual professionalism. I know we're in a virtual setting right now, and there has been so many things that have shifted to virtual. But I do want to point out that just because you're virtual doesn't mean you should be any less professional. So as you are job searching and getting on interviews, or when you start a job, you have meetings, you want to be just as professional as you would be in person. So you still want to dress professionally, be in a quiet space with a professional background or just a neutral background, which means your camera should be turned on. So if you are, at a meeting at work, it is professional to have your camera on and to really show that you're being present, you're listening, and you're engaged. In emails or even in texts, among coworkers, definitely keep that professional format and be clear and concise with your message. Kind of be really clear with what you're asking or what you're looking for. And then lastly, something I tell every single student is to be coachable. Going into the workforce, nobody's going to be expecting you to be an expert right off the bat. You are going to have questions. You're not going to know everything, and that is totally okay. And it's to be expected. But ask questions, ask for help when you need it, and take feedback graciously. Again, it's not always fun getting constructive feedback, but that's not always a negative thing. It's just something that can help you improve and something that can help you know where to focus your attention. So take that feedback graciously and just use it as a learning opportunity. Technology. So I know technology is such a big part of our culture and our society now. And this is definitely something that I think is only going to continue to increase in our society and in the workplace as well. And so NACE here with the competency regarding technology, they define this as understanding and leveraging technologies to complete tasks, to accomplish goals, and to also be able to adapt and learn new technology. I know that AI has become huge and it has become a really great tool, but we do have to be careful with how we use it. I know that like ChatGPT, you can write like full papers. I'm sure you could probably have it write a resume or a cover letter for you. And there are ways that it can increase productivity without being unethical. But again, we just have to be careful with it. I think, not relying solely on that is key. So there is a website called Quincia. I don't know if anybody has heard of it, but it's QUINNCIA. And that is a website that uses AI, and you can put in your resume and then you can put in a job description and it'll give you general feedback on your resume, but it will also kind of tell you how well your resume matches that job description. So basically telling you, hey, can you submit this and expect to hear something back or expect it to catch the eye of a recruiter for this position? So that's a really great way to use it, more as like a comparison or something to kind of check if you're on track rather than relying solely on AI. So the next competency here is critical thinking. Critical thinking is identifying and responding to needs based on understanding of a situation and analyzing relevant information. So it's basically being able to think in an organized and rational manner, basically thinking about thinking, right? So critical thinking is necessary for problem solving in ambiguous situations. And in the workplace, and maybe you've even experienced this already, whether it be in a club or a group project, there are definitely some situations that are not black and white. You may be faced with a problem or an issue that doesn't have a clear set of steps for you to take. And that's where critical thinking really comes in to play, because you need to figure out, what am I faced with? What do I need to do next? And how do I solve this problem? This next slide here, I have a few steps of critical thinking, and all 5 of these things kind of go together, but I just want to touch on each one pretty quickly. So when you're faced with a problem, and maybe you're not totally sure how to interpret the information that you're getting, you're not sure the next steps to take, the first thing is to evaluate the information that you have before you accept it as fact. So before you make any decisions, figure out, is this the truth or not? Because by finding out the truth in a situation, you can evaluate and consider possible challenges and possible solutions. Going along with that, consider where you're getting your information from. So consider the source. For example, if you're getting information from an ad, keep in mind that that ad is a marketing technique designed to sell you a product. So that's going to be a biased source. Also ask questions. When you are given new information, you have to evaluate it, and asking questions will help you evaluate. So some examples are, what ways can this problem be solved? What other perspectives exist on this topic? What research out there is there? And then you have to follow up with that research, because before you form your own opinion, you want to make sure that you're getting the facts. So do your research, whatever those questions that you came up with, make sure you get those answers, and then you should be able to form your opinion. So by kind of following these steps, you can make sure that you are basing your opinion and your next steps in a situation on logical and factual information, rather than kind of making a rash decision that then you have to go back and fix again. Next competency here is equity and inclusion. So this one here is demonstrating the awareness, the attitude, the knowledge, and the skills required to engage and include people from different cultures, and local and global cultures. Something I want to touch on here is unconscious biases. I'm not sure if anybody has heard of unconscious bias, but basically unconscious biases, they're social stereotypes about certain groups of people. And these form outside your own conscious awareness. So you don't even really realize that this bias is occurring. This happens to everybody. Everyone holds unconscious beliefs. And it almost stems from our tendency to organize things into categories. It is prevalent, probably even more prevalent than outright prejudice. And a lot of times it's not congruous with your own values. So just because you have an unconscious bias doesn't mean that you are a bad person or you actually do feel this specific way about a certain group of people, but it is still important that we address it. So to address unconscious bias, first of all, promoting self-awareness. So recognizing your own biases and discussing that. So it really does help to have these open discussions with other people, especially with people from groups that are a little bit different from your group. And you can, share these biases, and that can help other people feel more secure about exploring their own biases. So you can kind of have this conversation and explore that in a safe space, because being aware of these biases can help you catch yourself and then break these thought patterns. Also, in addressing bias, speaking out if you notice this in other people. Again, a lot of times the person might not even be aware that this is something they're doing or a bias that they have. So pointing it out, making them aware of it, can also kind of help break that thought pattern in them. And then lastly, apologizing if you do get it wrong or if you do slip up. We are humans, we make mistakes. So, if you navigate a situation the wrong way, or if you say something that you maybe think that wasn't the right thing to say, apologize and then learn from it. And that's all you can really do in that situation, is use it as a learning experience. All right, leadership. So leadership is definitely one of those skills that I think I see in like every single job description. I mean, these are all of these competencies are relevant to careers across the board, but leadership is definitely one that I think is in like every job description that's out there. So NACE defines the leadership competency as recognizing and capitalizing on personal and team strengths to achieve organizational goals. So this involves inspiring and motivating others toward a common goal, finding information and utilizing resources to help guide those plans, and also keeping a positive attitude when you're approaching tasks. Not every day is going to be easy and not every task is going to be easy, but a strong leader definitely keeps that positive attitude and helps to motivate their team in those situations. Now I have here a little chart that shows, a few steps in improving your leadership skills. So first is understanding your strengths. And this kind of goes back to the self-evaluation. So if you do your self-evaluation, you should have a really good understanding of what your strengths are. But it is really important to differentiate your strengths from your weaknesses. If you know what your strengths are, then you'll be able to play them up to your advantage. So if you know you're a good negotiator, you'll be able to focus on tasks where those skills are used most. So you can kind of use this to your advantage and focus your efforts in those areas. Secondly, be a visionary. So whether it's at a job or in a club or even a team project, you probably have some sort of goal or vision of whatever this thing is, the project, the job, the task, whatever it might be. And so if you don't already have them, you should create short and long-term goals. Again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier. But having these goals and having a clear vision of where you want your team to go, it'll not only help motivate you, but it'll also help motivate your employees or your teammates as well. It'll also help you stay focused when things do maybe get a little difficult. If you have something that goes wrong, or maybe you have something that just kind of goes off track, having that goal will help keep your focus on the end game and kind of keep you motivated in that sense. Practice active listening. So this involves being attentive to what your colleagues or your peers are saying. So you're focusing on what they're saying, not what you're going to say next. You're listening to their concerns and then responding appropriately. So this shows that not only are you engaged, but you also care. Stay focused. I know that you guys probably have many things that you're juggling, and the majority of leaders do face several responsibilities all at the same time. So like I said, I'm sure you guys are all involved in, along with classes, clubs, sports, maybe part-time jobs, whatever it might be. But I know that it's really easy to get distracted or overwhelmed. But it's important to practice staying focused and practice that time management, juggling those multiple priorities, because entering into the workforce, you will have competing priorities. And sometimes you do kind of have to change your plan to be able to meet your goal. So practicing that time management and how you balance everything will really help you once you get into the workforce. Another great way to improve your leadership skills is getting feedback. So you can ask, whether it be employees that you work with, your teammates, peers, you can ask them how you can be a better leader, or what you can do differently in their eyes. So this will show them that not only you care what they think, but it will also give you a really good insight into how you're being perceived. How do they see you? And is that in line with how you see yourself? And then it'll also help you figure out what actions you can take to become a better leader. And so it's great to know, it's great to be self-aware and see what others, how others view you. And then lastly, help others. So by assisting others, whether you're in a leadership position or not, whether you're a manager or not, or a supervisor or not, helping others helps you get leadership skills because you're helping others, towards a goal. You're helping to train or coach those people. And so you'll be able to build a relationship, build trust with that person. And it'll also help you develop your own leadership skills and give you kind of a story to talk about, maybe when you are going to an interview. All right, next is teamwork. So teamwork involves building and maintaining collaborative relationships to work towards a common goal, while also appreciating diverse viewpoints and shared responsibilities. And so that second part of that definition, the diverse viewpoints, that's something I want to touch on in a minute here, because that's a really big part of teamwork. But it involves listening to others, managing conflict, compromising, and also being responsible for more than just your individual work. When you're part of a team, you're responsible for the whole project, not just your individual portion. I'm sure everybody out there has teamwork experience because you get teamwork experience from student organizations and clubs, athletics, class projects, volunteer projects, all of those things. So when you're thinking about your teamwork experiences and the skills that you've gained from that, think about the role that you had in the team and what you contributed individually. Also think about how your team overcame obstacles and how you handled issues and disagreements, because going into the workplace, it is really important to figure out how to disagree with somebody professionally, because it's important. It's important that you voice your opinion, that you are able to offer up new ideas or different ways of doing things. These are all things that are valued in the workplace, but it's important to know how to do these things professionally. So being able to talk about the time that you worked in a team and maybe you had a different viewpoint than somebody else, how you worked together and how you kind of compromised and reached a common agreement to move forward, that's going to be really important going into the workplace. Okay, and then the last one here is communication. So communication is clearly and effectively exchanging ideas, information, facts, and perspectives. A really big part of communication is active listening. I touched on this briefly before, but you can improve your active listening skills by paying attention to what people are saying. And again, not just on what you're going to say next. So not just, listening to what they're saying, but also paying attention to their facial expressions, their body language, their tone of voice, and how they're speaking. So it's important that you're paying attention to all of these things and really giving them your full attention rather than kind of focusing on yourself. It's also important to ask questions and clarify that you understand, because this will help you in articulating your response. Empathy is also really important in communication. So empathy means you not only understand where the other person is coming from, but that you can share in that emotion as well. So this helps both in a team setting and in a one-on-one setting, because if you have empathy, this will help you to kind of read the situation a little bit deeper, translate what that other person is feeling, and then be able to respond appropriately. I think respect is also a really big part of communication. So a key aspect of respect is knowing when to initiate communication and when to respond. So obviously in a team or a group setting, you want to give your teammates, the space to talk, without interruption. So let them speak without interrupting and give them that time. Using people's time wisely. So in a meeting, not going off topic, asking relevant questions and also providing answers to any questions that people ask of you. But making sure that you're using the most of your time and that you're being smart with your time and staying on topic. And then lastly, just take a second to think before you speak. That seems really basic, but you want to take a minute to articulate what you want to say and make sure that what you're going to say is going to come across how you want it to. We've all, I think, kind of put our foot in our mouths before and been like, oh shoot, I wish I would have said that a different way, or I wish I would have, said something else. So just take a second, take a beat before you respond to make sure that that is what you want to communicate. If you're having an important conversation, maybe a meeting, maybe an interview, take some time to practice beforehand. So practice in the mirror, practice with a friend, say your lines, quote unquote, out loud. But that will help you to feel more confident as you're speaking. And it'll also help you kind of shake out any mistakes or anything that might trip you up. So we talked about these 8 competencies, but how do you communicate your skills when you're networking, when you're in an interview? How do you effectively communicate these skills? Maybe you guys have heard of this, but my favorite, interview tip is using the STAR method. So a lot of times in an interview, you'll be asked, tell me about a time when ... Tell me about a time when you led a team to reach a goal. That's a quick example. These questions, they are targeted at a specific skill or competency, and the interviewer is typically looking for a really specific example. So the STAR method is a really great strategy to use when you're answering these types of questions. So STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result. So the situation, you're going to set the scene, give some background of the situation. The task, describe the purpose. So why was this situation or this day different than any other? What kind of set this situation apart? The action is going to be what you did. So the steps that you took, the skills that you used, what you contributed in that situation. And then lastly, the results. So what was the outcome? Typically, it's best to use a positive result when you're using the STAR method. And you don't have to necessarily do it in this order. You can sometimes start with the result. And if you have a really big statistic to use, like I increased sales by 20%, if you have something along those lines, that can kind of catch the attention of the interviewer. And then you can kind of work backwards into how you got there. So you don't have to necessarily go in this order, but as long as you are hitting on each of these things, that's going to give the interviewer a really clear picture of what you did and the skills that you used. And it's going to keep your answer concise as well. So in communicating, I know I said, stay on topic. It's easy to ramble for sure. Using the STAR method will help you stay on topic and kind of keep that answer concise. I touched on this a little bit earlier, but where are you gaining these skills? So all of these competencies that we just talked about, where are you getting this experience? Well, it can come from a variety of different areas. So student organizations or clubs, Greek life, athletics, part-time jobs, of course, internships and professional work as well. And then also volunteer experience. So I want to point out here that there's a lot more than just quote unquote office jobs or professional jobs that goes into your skills. So when you are thinking about your experience and your skills, think outside of just that professional experience. Think about all those different areas that you have been involved with throughout your college career. Think about what you did and the experiences that you had, because you've probably used and gained skills in all of these competencies so far, even if you're still early in your college career. That kind of wraps up the competencies. I do just want to give a really quick overview about Enterprise and who we are as a company. But before I do that, does anybody have any questions?
We don't have any questions, Alex, but one of the comments that us as career professionals always hear is that critical thinking is the area where students need to work on the most. Mm-hmm. Do you have suggestions for ways that students, juniors, seniors, sophomores, can work on those critical thinking skills?
Ways that they can work on it? Yeah. So I would say, I think you kind of have to be in a situation, right? So to use your critical thinking skills. So I don't know if I would say there's a way to put yourself in that, but I would say just kind of be aware when you're in all those experiences we just talked about. So when you're in a class project or you're, in a club or an organization and you are kind of faced with a problem, maybe things aren't going as planned, something pops up. I know it happens all the time. Things don't always go as planned. So when you're faced with an issue or things don't go as planned, and you're kind of trying to decide the next steps of action, I'll go back to that slide. Just take a second and think through these steps. So I would say just think about your experience, and when you are in those different situations where you are faced with a problem, just think about each of these steps and then kind of reflect back on that afterwards. And that will kind of show you a picture of okay, what was the problem I was faced with? And then, how did I move through each of these steps to solve the problem?
Well, one question I have is, what advice would you have on on building a strong network and such?
Yeah, so I would definitely recommend while you're in school attending different events. So if there is a networking event or whether that be something with a club or organization, or whether that be a professional networking event, I would do that. I would definitely make sure that you have a strong LinkedIn presence. If there are companies or different positions that you're interested in, do some research on that company on LinkedIn and see if you can find a recruiter or a hiring manager follow them on LinkedIn, and then you could even send them a message to say like, hey, I'm really interested in your company or this position, and I would love to set up a time to talk further. Does, next Monday between 11 and 1 work for you? So I would say, one, utilizing LinkedIn and reaching out if you are interested in a specific field or specific positions or companies, reaching out there. Definitely attending networking events. Networking can be difficult, it can be intimidating, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. The more you do it, or the earlier you do it, the earlier you start building connections. And then I would just kind of get involved on campus as well. Make sure that you are building relationships with people in organizations, and even your professors, because professors can also be someone that you can lean on and, go to for advice or whatever it might be. So I would say utilize the resources you have on campus, definitely get on LinkedIn, and then attend those like networking event type things going on campus.
I think you can go ahead. Thanks.
Okay, great. So just to briefly touch on enterprise. So most people know enterprise for enterprise rent-a-car, but we actually do a lot more than just rent cars. So Enterprise Holdings actually owns Enterprise, National, and Alamo. So the three are sister companies. Biggest difference between the three of them is they each just have a different customer base. And then we do also have a lot of different divisions within the company. So we do rent cars, but we also sell cars. We do truck rental, kind of like U-Haul. We do fleet management. We even have like a car sharing service. So we do a lot more than just rent cars. And we do also work with a wide variety of companies, government agencies, consumers every single day. We're a global company. So we're in over 100 countries. We have over 80,000 employees, and we have more than 2 million vehicles in our fleet right now. And we're only continuing to grow. So we are definitely a huge company, but Enterprise is really committed to giving back to the community. So on a global level, these are a few of our initiatives that are going on right now. So Enterprise is planting 1 billion trees for the next 50 years. So 50 million total trees. We're donating $60 million over the next 6 years to help with food insecurity for our Fill Your Tank campaign. And we're donating 55 million years over the next 5 years to help advance social and racial equality through our Road Forward campaign. Enterprise is really committed to giving back to the community. And these are some of like the corporate initiatives, but we're also committed to giving back on a local level as well. So we have what we call the Enterprise Holdings Foundation. And basically each region is allotted a certain amount of money. So in Western Pennsylvania last year, we were given $70,000. And the whole purpose of that money is to be donated to local organizations, so local charities. Employees can write in requests. So if there is an organization that they feel strongly about, they can write in a request. We just have to verify that it is a legitimate nonprofit. And then a donation is made to that organization. Our employees do also get a volunteer day. So this is an additional day that they get that they can use to go volunteer, whether that be on their own or in a group with a group of employees. We do have some like company events that we hold, but basically they can go volunteer without having to use one of their like PTO days. So without having to use anything from their PTO bank. So we recently volunteered at the food bank in Pittsburgh. We've been to the Humane Society a few times. We've been to the Sarah Hines House in Pittsburgh. So that's a home for youths, if you're not familiar. So Enterprise, like I said, they're really committed to giving back globally, but then also on a local level as well. And it's a really great way for employees to get involved with organizations that they feel really strongly about. So within Enterprise, we hire almost all of our employees into a management trainee position. So that's an entry-level position with a career path. You come in and you get hands-on training in customer service, sales, management, marketing, even like the financial and the operational side of things. So you really get to learn how all the different things that go into running our business work. And then we do promote 100% from within from there. We have an internship as well for this management trainee position. So the internship is basically the first 3 months of that full-time training program. The competencies that we typically look for in management trainees are listed here. So you can see we're kind of unique. We hire from all majors. So we typically appeal to business majors, but you can come into enterprise with any degree. Personally, I graduated with a psychology degree, so a little bit different. But these are the skills that we're looking for. So customer service skills and the ability to be empathetic, leadership skills, the ability to be persuasive, strong work ethic, strong communication skills, and then the ability to be flexible and adaptable. So these competencies are the same nationwide. So whether you were going to be a management trainee in Pennsylvania or like California, these competencies are going to be the same. And these are what all of our recruiters are looking for. Lastly here, this is a really great kind of map of all the different paths that are available within enterprise. So you can see that first little dot, management trainee. Like I said, that's where everybody starts. So then you can either continue into management and then upper level management, or you can branch off into any one of those other divisions listed there. So a lot of opportunity for growth, and even different career paths, all under the umbrella of enterprise. And then lastly here, I just wanted to take a quick minute to note the positions that we're hiring for right now. So right now we are hiring for our full-time position. We're interviewing May 2024 grads. And then for our internship, we are interviewing rising seniors. So if you're graduating in December 2024 or May 2025, if you are interested in opportunities or in just even hearing a little bit more about these positions or about enterprise, you can scan that QR code on the screen. That will have you fill out a quick form, basically so I can just follow up with you and send you a little bit more information. And then that is all I have.
So Alex, if somebody is interested in a summer internship with enterprise, they should be applying today for that position, or is there a different timeline for that?
So our internship postings, they are not open just yet, but they will be within the next few weeks. So I would say like first week of October. So if anybody is interested in the internship opportunities, definitely scan the QR code, because then I'll be able to send the link whenever we do open those up.
Anything else? I did note Megan did put that Quincia link in the chat for you, so that students can look at that AI that Alex mentioned to put your resume in to compare to a job description. So that's available in the chat. Okay, well, I will stop recording.